So a lot of what goes on in the United States during, say, the Black Lives Matter riots, by any means necessary, Antifa mirrors a lot of what you're seeing contemporary adversaries do, and or what Armin's observation was very insightful. Armin, your observation, which is, and it mirrors what the patriotic bloc experienced during the selective application of policing, specifically the non-response law enforcement was forced to adopt to lesser kinetic and or kinetic operations that define the radical left and Islamic fundamentalists as diversity of tactics. In other words, it was very much a resultant of the operational constraints placed on law enforcement via local politicians that were directly responding to those same radical leftists and Islamic fundamentalists electorally punishing them. A lot of that looks to, or a lot of that weaponization tries to draw on the perversion of insights drawn by Della Porta. She's actually one of the more renowned contemporary analysts regarding political violence in the world ever since the 90s. And she came up with an operational doctrine that was included all throughout the West that dealt with policing in a Western society, which a lot of the bad guys, radical leftists, Islamic fundamentalists, Chinese Communist Party, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, shake a stick, you'll hit an asshole, right? Have learned to weaponize. So keeping within the broader contextual focus, such efforts is, and it's very much the contextual focus of this discussion, which centers around liberating Iran from the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran since 1979, and how, like, radical leftists and Islamic fundamentalists leveraged certain diversity of tactics prior to the fall of the Shah via the Red Black Alliance. I wanted to know if you think the one who was in London, forgive me if I forget your name. Do you think maybe the moderation in how they were, how the law enforcement was implemented during your time there, which I'm very happy it occurred the way it did, was in response to the pushback that was, the sociocultural backlash that was resultant of the selective application of the law enforcement? As for Armin, you're not wrong. I would contend the sociocultural blowback is almost surely going to be a backlash to the abuse that Iranians suffered on the behest of the Mullah regime, and it's probably going to bear itself out in physical elements that the Mullah regime used as part of their apparatus of repression. In other words, like, why did Iranians and Persians burn down mosques? It's because the IRGC and the besieged brigades used those as centers of gravity and operational headquarters to punish and torture people. And this would, there's other elements though that you mentioned that were very important, which is the restorative efforts at the sociocultural level regarding Persian culture that was punished by the Mullah regime that has illegally occupied Iran since 1979. So the issue then is, how do you manage that, the potential instability there? And so this is one key point you brought up, which I want to hear your insight on: the picking of the founders. The positive impact of that is that Iranians will be directly involved in and subsequently have ownership over the process, which will increase public buy-in, public and or extra personal, meaning an individual versus something bigger than an individual buy-in, along with legitimacy and sustainability of the government that is ultimately selected. The challenge is the operational security element, because an open system is vulnerable to dishonest actors attempting to hijack that process to disrupt it. So, is there plans in place to insulate them from disrupting it?
Insulate the former regime people in
So, hold on.
disrupting the process.
Insulate the very much, the broad and very much appreciated public approach towards electing the founders. So in other words,
Oh,
bad guys go, yeah, they're gonna put, not me, not we, I'm not one of them. I'm saying one of those bad guys are gonna go, well, then they're gonna put forward their own representative to push forward their own warped, watered down version of, say, the Mullah regime.
okay. So this is how Princess of Pahlavi's four principle comes in, right? So we're going to. By the way, we don't want to come. We don't want to. I think, in my opinion, I don't want to speak on behalf of all Iranians. I don't think it's a good idea to basically not allow people in because of shitty ideas. Like, how do we make sure that they don't come in and infiltrate and basically bring the Islamic Republic through a back door, right? So we're going to have four walls where we're not going to allow people in based on these four principles, right? The one of them is the basically secularism. So the four are the border integrity of Iran. Anybody that is active politically trying to challenge the border of integrity of Iran has no place in Iranian politics, right? So no separatist parties or activists will be allowed in. That's number one. Two, democracy, right? Anybody with undemocratic principle who wants to challenge democracy itself, obviously, right? Third one is secularism, which is will keep probably any Islamic Republic elements out. Would be basically anybody with any religious goals or a religious agenda would not be allowed in the politics of Iran. Will not be allowed. I mean, they could argue for it individually as citizens, but they will not be allowed into the government. And last principle is equal individual rights before the law. So these are the four principles. I mean, could somebody lie and get in anyways? I mean, a lot of these people have a record. They could say like, oh, "Okay, changed my mind." Sure, they can get in, but obviously, based on our constitution, they're going to be looked at, and every time they want to push for anything that would be challenging any of these four principles, that would be violation of the constitution and would be dealt with accordingly. But these are the ways. So when it comes to the Islamic Republic, I don't think the Islamic Republic's own ideology is that much of a threat in the future politics of Iran, because of how vile and disgusting anything they stand for was, and how low in numbers they are. But there are some other versions of the 57 philosophy. I don't know how to. So the Panjo Haftia, which is basically the what we label the category of the ideologies that are responsible for the Islamic Revolution of 1979 and everything that basically Iran suffers from, like the basically the Marxists, the Islamists, the Mossadegis, the MEK, all. And I think the Islamic Republic version of that expression of that ideology is the least we have to worry about, in my opinion, right? I think the Mossadeghism and I mean MEK, we don't honestly maybe the MEK is actually the one that we least need to be worried about. So I think Marx, like leftist, like far left ideology, and Mossadeghism is a group of people that I don't think these four principles will be able to hold back, right? So they will be able to get in. So that's the problem that we have to deal with. These people will probably be able to run as as members of parliament. And the reason why I know that now for sure is because Princess of Pahlavi confirmed that Nargis Mohammadi could run as try to become prime minister if she wanted to in the future of Iran, which Nargis Mohammadi represents all of these ideas together, right? So that means that the Islamic Republic itself, its ideology directly, I mean, the secularism wall will stop that in. So I think I'm less worried about the Islamic Republic sneaking in, more worried about people like Nargis Mohammadi and what they stand for, and Masih Ali Nejad. They are going to be a bigger problem than the Islamic Republic itself. Does that answer your question?
Just, I guess the point is to ensure that you don't have any dishonest or disruptive elements engage in calculated aggression and leverage the democratic process as a means to lower the entrance barrier for them to include their sedition in the national discourse. And you have a repeat of what happened in Egypt vis-a-vis the Muslim
Right.
Brotherhood led interim government after the fall of Mubarak during the Arab Nightmare.
Yeah, the Islamic Republic, anything that is resembles it is going to be so toxic that I don't think that they have a chance. I think they are going to be more of a threat when it comes to like a terrorist group, like more of an ISIS than a Muslim Brotherhood. Like Muslim Brotherhood is like, oh, we come to your system and we use the elections to come take over. I don't think that the Islamic Republic has that way of getting into our politics. I think they're going to be more like ISIS, more like illegal troublemakers that will bomb here, kill that person, or do some terrorist activities here and there. That's the way that whatever remains of the Islamic Republic, that's the way that I think they're going to cause this problem, not through the electoral process.
So, what do I think? I think that with the Palestine protests, it was probably mostly young Arabic people who have been known to be quite violent in London and across the UK. They don't have a good reputation of being calm and predictable in what they're going to do. And I do think that the police, I honestly do believe that they were afraid to engage. I think that they thought if they just corral them in, keep them away from buildings, and just let them do whatever the hell they wanted to do, and that would be a lot easier than trying to fight them, which is what would probably have happened if they would have needed so many riot police to take them all down, and they would pretty much have to probably arrest every single one of them. So, and I think that initially, I think it may have been a sort of a similar situation to the Uber driver that Nare experienced was, oh, protest, violence. And I think that maybe that was initially what they thought. Then they didn't know the difference between an Iranian and, the pro-Pali nuts. And so I think that maybe that was possibly the reason for the overreaction. However, I do think after multiple weekends, lots and lots of protests in London, I think that the police are smart enough to have noticed that the people in the Iranian protests are like middle class, middle aged, often much older. They're normally dressed. They don't seem like they're loons. They just seem like normal people. And I think they probably have figured it out. I think these people are different. And I do think that there is definitely something to the waving the British flags a lot, that the British flags are always there, the fact that they always play the God Save the King, it's respect. And all of those things I think has played a part in the way it's sort of the I saw it be very, very different. And so I think that they've figured it out now. That's what I think.
Okay, Daniel, you're up.
Okay, good evening. Do you hear me? Right, so my question is with a little backstory. Like when the Soviet Union fell, a country like Lithuania, they removed everyone who was connected to the KGB, who was connected to the Communist Party, and they started the government from scratch. And those who were in charge before wasn't allowed for any role in the government, any public role, anything. They possibly could go and like work in I don't know, the private sector maybe. And I hear a lot of talks about Iran that they like say no, but you can't totally condemn all the IRGC members and all the political actors that are right now taking place in Iran. And like I think it's a misunderstanding because like Persians and Iranians are really like good established national country. Like they have their national identity. And I'm just curious, I mean, what do you think of it? Do you think it's a good move to like remove all the IRGC and all the parliament that is the current parliament right now? And I don't think it was a
Okay,
mistake.
like
I
just
think it even gave prosperity to those places.
okay. I don't know much about, so I thought it was like, honestly, I don't know how much that is true about the Soviet Union. I know this is very true about what happened after the fall of Saddam, right? So when Saddam fell, the process of de-Baathification, I think that might be a better example to use because it might resemble what we're dealing with here in Iran a little bit more. So the Americans decided that nobody that was involved in the Ba'ath Party, the party of Saddam, should be allowed to participate in the new government after Saddam. That ended up being a disaster because it created a huge power vacuum
Yeah, but
that it caused a decade of chaos and the rise of ISIS. So Princess of Pahlavi has very much like repeated that we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the people who are working within the Islamic Republic, they continue working after the Islamic Republic falls, except the ones with evidence that they have blood on their hand. When it
uh,
comes to quickly to say what you want to say, but let me finish my point then after quickly, please. Yeah.
they're incompetent. Like they're in the politics in Iran right now. All the
All right.
political actors are like
All right,
based on
let me address that. Let me address that. Okay, it doesn't matter if they're incompetent. We would have a meritocracy, and then the way that you will make people with more competence get in is not that you don't just get rid of everybody and then rebuild everything. That will be chaotic, right? So you will have the people who are like that. That will be so hard to manage. People are in the middle of their jobs, right? You will let them continue their work, and then but you will open the job, you will slowly transition to more to you will open like the new people who would be hired would be based on merit. People, then you would have performance metrics, so that if people are not doing their job properly, after a little while you basically give them warnings and maybe remove them slowly. You don't just like like break everything apart and just see what happens. That would be the power vacuum that will create will be messy, and especially given that we've seen what has happened in Iraq because of that. I think the mistake was debathification. I think it was a good thing that the United States removed Saddam. It was a really good thing that they did that. But the chaos that came after it and the so many Americans that died because of it was because of the debathification. With regards to the IRGC, yeah, we will get rid of the IRGC, of course, but many people, we wouldn't get rid of the people who are working in the IRGC. Any person who's working within the IRGC who doesn't have blood on their hand will be moved to the Artesh. So it's not
are
like if we
those
get rid of the
any
IRGC, what? Hold on, let me finish my points, please. Okay, let me just
Mhm.
let me get my let me try to make my point, right? So yeah, now I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, so get like basically telling every single IRGC soldier that you're out of a job is almost a guarantee to repeat the process of what created ISIS in Iraq. Basically, telling a whole bunch of people who have been trained to fight that yeah, you're out of a job and get the hell out, and we're not going to hire you. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? We just created an army for the the people who are going to try to bring the Islamic Republic back. So Princess of Pahlavi wisely has said that we have to bring all of these people in under the umbrella of the Artesh and just have one army. Go ahead.
And like in Iraq, the problem was that they didn't have a real nationality like the Iranians, like the Persians have still. And it was more of like imperialist countries like France and Britain just came with a pencil and a ruler and just like, all right, this is Iraq, this is this, this is this, this is this, and like people like Kurds, Baluchis, other nationalities were like in situation where they forced to live under the same government, although they was hating each other. So this is not the
That's not the
situation in
only.
Iran.
That's not the only problem.
Yeah,
Debathification
it's
was only a
one.
big problem. Yep, and we're not going to repeat that.
Yeah, I understand. So, but in Iran, this is not the case, I think.
Yeah, but it's saying it's saying that they were hurt. Okay, I know we don't have that problem. Just because we don't have that problem, we don't have to then have their other problems. So you're saying Iraq has, like, we're identifying two problems Iraq had, and you're saying Iran doesn't have one of them. I'm like, okay, how about we have none of them? among these two problems. So not having that problem that you're identifying doesn't mean that we should basically decide to have the second problem, because we're lucky enough to not have the other one. So we are identifying problem A and problem B. The lack of a national identity as strong as we have in Iran is problem A. Problem B that caused chaos in Iraq is de-Baathification. So you're saying you guys don't have problem A. I'm like, okay, we would also like to not have problem B as well. That would be nice. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, and the other thing is, do you believe in likelihood that there will come a war after Iran is free? Like pretty much what happened in Israel
With who?
in 1948?
With who?
I don't know, like
I think we're gonna have I think we might have some wars with Taliban, and we're gonna have some wars with some Islamic terrorist groups in like from Pakistan. I think we're gonna have some wars with them. I think it's very unlikely, not impossible, for us to have wars on our western borders. Actually, we might have some issues with Hashtag on our western borders. Okay, so the wars that we're going to be having is mostly going to be with militias, not with states, except maybe in Afghanistan, we might have a war with the Taliban. So other than the Taliban, which might end up having, we might actually have a war with Taliban. Okay, so that's going to be the only war with an actual state. The other wars we're going to be having is not only it's not going to be with the state, it might even be cooperating with the state against the militia groups. So we might be cooperating with Iraq against Hashtag. That's very unlikely because Hashtag is very influential in Iraq. But we're not. We at least if we do fight Hashtag, I mean, I hope Iraq gets to a point where Hashtag is denounced by their state. Very hard to do that, but even if we attack Hashtag in Iraq, we're going to declare that, hey, this is not an attack on Iraq. We might have some tension. Maybe Iraqi government at that point were like, well, back off. And we were like, well, we can't. So, and Pakistan, in Pakistan as well, right? So there are terrorist groups within Pakistan that one might cause us a lot of hassle. So it's going to be tense because we might want to talk to those governments to work with each other to deal with them, but then we have to respect their border integrity. But at the same time, there is terrorist elements from within their borders who are trying to come and cause us problem in our borders. And what do you do if we think the government of those countries are not doing enough to tackle them? But we also want to respect our neighbors. So these are the kind of stuff that we probably have to deal with in the future. But yeah, the greatest threat I think when it comes to an actual war between two states is going to be with Afghanistan, with the Taliban. Hezbollah actually I mean, if you read the Quran, they are the Hezbollah. They are the party of Allah. I mean, that's what you would expect from the party of Allah. Actually, Shaitan was the first humanist. If you read his story, so I don't think that's fair to him.
I mean, you're not wrong about there being the main. So this debathization was not the problem. It was the delay in the conventional phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom and non-interventionists undermining our plans to hit the Mullah regime in 2005, like we were looking to do, and not providing jobs for the rank and file in the Iraqi army post fall of the. I mean, you had to get rid of the Baathists. You had to still maintain people having jobs, though, and that's the key point. You said people don't have the blood on their hands. With regards to destabilization, your focus on what the threats are probably you're spot on. With regards to sub-state transnational actors that'll be somewhat rogue regime, I'll also add Putin and the criminalized counterintelligence state and the Chinese Communist Party elements of the Pakistani government will probably also almost assuredly support those insurgent elements to try and destabilize Iran because losing the mullah regime is an antithetical to their interests. To that end, it would be because the United States fought almost a 20-year long war against Islamic fundamentalism, and we have a wealth of experience in counterinsurgency, those are the people that you should reach out to, which is why I was saying, like, here's how you'd create PMCs and all this other stuff, not to go fight the mullahs, to maybe also set them up so that they can become what is it, like your version of Department of Homeland Security that is trained and experienced in guarding against insurgents-based threats.
I thought when you started Jeffrey, I thought you're going to say I agree with Armin that Satan was the first human, and so I'm like, oh wow, this is a new side of Jeffrey. Okay.
No, brother,
I'm
no.
like, okay. All right,
Okay, next we have Michael.
Hey
Michael.
Armin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. So I have a question for you, right? So there's so first I'm gonna make a little statement and then I'll give you the question, right? So there's like this warfare propaganda, right? This news warfare propaganda being pushed out by these independent like reports. Because I've heard that, oh, Iran's gonna propose a US a deal in the Geneva, blah blah blah, this and that. Oh, that they're scrambling for something. Do you believe that the Geneva meeting will actually go well, or do you think it'll be a massive failure?
Massive failure seems like it, but what are other people saying? So, but before you actually say
Yeah.
that,
Huh?
let me give context to people who are saying this. So, Arakshi, the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, is going to be meeting in Geneva with the, I think, Witkoff and Jared Kushner, or is it just yeah? It's going to be meeting with the American side regarding the final. I think maybe Trump has said it's a final chance for them to come up with a meaningful offer, or basically, or there are going to be consequences. Potentially, he means that it seemed like he was suggesting that if they don't give something meaningful tomorrow, right? Is it tomorrow?
What Iran wants is the
There's
lifting
yeah,
of sanctions as well, right?
yeah,
So that way they can.
yeah. That's a joke, by the way.
That'll never
Yeah,
happen.
that's the funniest joke. That will never happen. Yeah, but and it seemed like the Trump is signaling that if they don't come up with something meaningful, then there's going to be war. Yeah, the fact that they're asking for sanctions removal means that they're living in a completely different universe than us, because that's not even on the table with regards to like the negotiation is like give us something so that we don't fuck you up. Like there is no talk regarding removal of the sanctions. They're like, do you want us to do you want to surrender or do you want us to attack you? And they're like, how about you give us money? What are you talking about? Like, huh? Like that's what the Islamic Republic is suggesting. And like, how about you don't attack? This is okay. So the Americans are saying we want 0% enrichment of uranium. We want your range of ballistic missiles to be under 300 kilometers, and we want you to completely stop supporting proxy terrorist groups in the region. And the Islamic Republic is like, how about no? How about we continue enriching uranium? How about we don't even talk about our missiles? And how about we don't talk about our proxy groups? And how about you don't attack and also remove the sanctions? Like it's a joke. Like what the hell
So
are you
Iran is
talking about? Like
basically the IRGC is basically, or
yes.
Islamic Republic is basically placing a trap for Donald Trump of like, oh, if you lift the sanctions, we will get rid of our nuclear program or blah blah blah.
No, they're not saying that. I mean, they're not offering anything
Yeah.
meaningful. They're not offering anything meaningful at all. They're saying that maybe we'll bring it down to like under 60, like below 60%, and we allow you to come check on a daily basis, and also we'll give you some oil and gas, and we will buy some planes from you because you've been kind enough to remove the sanctions, so now we can buy planes from you. So we will buy some planes from you, and also maybe you could come Trump could come and do some div construction in our cities. That's what they're offering, right?
Also, one last thing I
So
want to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's a joke. It's like funny, it's like
Ah,
comedy, but go on.
so I want to see if Jeffrey agrees with me with this or not, but I think that toppling Saddam Hussein I think was somewhat of a mistake because he at what at some point he kept these terrorist groups out of power that were trying to push him out. But I feel like the ones that were like he's not a saint, right? Obviously he's not perfect, and so like I feel like that was an issue right there. But I feel like the reason why the Iraq war also happened was because of Iraqi refugee lobbyists like Ahmed Chalabi.
But
Do you want me
here's
to
the thing.
answer, or you want Armin to answer it?
I quickly answered, but Jeffrey, you go ahead and answer. I think short term, it looks like it was a bad idea, and it could have been much less costly if we didn't do the debathification in Iraq. It could have been less chaotic. It didn't have to turn into 10 years of chaos if we didn't do debathification. I think the excuse for the war was like maybe it was a lie, but I think long term the benefits way outweigh the costs. I mean, especially like I think if you want to see the benefits of removing Saddam, you have to zoom out instead of looking in 10 years or 20 years. If you zoom out and look at 50 years and 100 years, if we remove Saddam and the Islamic Republic, like short term, it seemed like removing Saddam benefits the Islamic Republic. But now, if we get rid of the Islamic Republic, I mean, imagine we live in a world where there's no Saddam, where there's no Islamic Republic. Cuba is not communist anymore. Venezuela is basically now cooperating with the United States. And we have removed Hezbollah and Hamas are not there anymore. And yeah, I mean, this is going to, and Russia has been for decade after decades of war. Russia has now become weaker and weaker. North Korea will become only relevant in their area of the planet, and China is, still growing, but with at such a pace that is much slower than United States. For eventually the US's dominance as a forever superpower is all but guaranteed, right? I mean, that's amazing. Like, I mean, all of this, a world without Saddam is so much better than a world with Saddam. So yes, it was difficult for a couple of years in the beginning, but I think eventually it worked that way. I mean, now that the Islamic Republic is falling as well, this whole, if Saddam was in power and the Islamic Republic fell, this area will still not be stable. Right now, without Saddam and the Islamic Republic, we will finally could have eventually a stable Middle East. Jeffrey, sorry, too long.
All all valid points. So the reason the calculations and underwrote the United States led military intervention to Iraq to remove Saddam Hussein stem from two main observations and conclusions. One is the operational impact of global socioeconomic and technological trends that I keep hammering home, which minimize the transaction costs regarding information, or that an actor needs to make significant impact on the world system. The scope of that impact no longer stays local. The time you have between an actor plans a course of action and implements that course of action been reduced. You have no warning time, and the time between when an actor initiates a course of action and the impact of that action reaches its maximum point of impact has been reduced. You have no response time, right? People think that, oh, 9/11 changed the world. Incorrect. The terrorist attack of September 11th illustrated in a very brutal way the world had already operationally changed. When you measure that insight along with the fact that Saddam Hussein's consistent violation of UN resolutions that were pursuant to the ceasefire at the first Gulf War, UN Resolution 687, which includes support of terrorists, including Al Qaeda, albeit Saddam Hussein and his Ba'athist regime were not directly involved in the operational aspects of 9/11. Saddam Hussein very much provided organizational support to Al Qaeda and other Islamic fundamentalist terrorists. There's no doubt about that at all. And not for nothing continued to pursue his WMD capability. I mean, the reason that Israel knew where to strike regarding the Alawite regime's clandestine nuclear reactor in 2014 was because of the intel we found in Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist headquarters after the toppling of Saddam Hussein. So as far as like again, some of the like Armin's not wrong again. Armin, you come in one hell of a weapon, man. I can't tell you how proud I am of you.
Aw.
No, I mean that. That's not meant to be flattering, right? I mean, you're coming a long way, not to like, oh, I'm the teacher. I'm just saying, like, you're juggling all this horrible shit you got to deal with, your friends and all the stuff they're dealing with in Iran, and yet you've continually maintained, I mean, behaviorally, like a sense of humility and humanity that most people don't maintain when not put under such pressure, as well as increase your operational capability. So in regards to what Armin was saying, where was I at? Damn. Oh, right. With regards to why there was instability, the majority of the instability stemmed from the fact we were delayed in the United Nations by would-be near competitors, both Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Chinese Communist Party, along with other actors, including those in NATO, that all had vested interest in keeping Saddam in power to the tunes of billions of dollars from backdoor oil concession for the oil for food program. And that subsequently allowed Saddam's time to decentralize his Fedayeen Saddam terror troops, center of gravity in the Republican Guard and the rest to meld them into the indigenous populace and wage a protracted insurgency campaign in the immediate aftermath of the conventional military phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom, which then provided an opportunity for regional hostile exogenous actors, specifically the Mullah regime, to flood in foreign fighters like Soleimani via al-Quds forces when they flooded across the border in Kirkuk and taught a lot of people like al-Qaeda in Iraq how to make bomb belts and V-bids to kill my fellow soldiers, which is in no insignificant manner why, like President Trump in his first term killed Soleimani. So what's the whole short and skinny of that? The idea that somehow we should not have removed Saddam Hussein because he was somehow a stabilizing force is absolute horseshit, pushed by both like radical leftists and non-interventionists on the right, and does not hold up even to a superficial level of analytical scrutiny when you know what the substantive element of the issue is. It's total bullshit.